jellyfish have been around for as long as 700 million years, predating even most of the dinosaurs. But it is hard to find out exactly how long they've been around because it's hard to get fossils for animals that don't have bones. Today we have some special guests. Eric?
I feel like that was a weird transition.
Nope, good transition.
Okay. Today we have Cy and Lane. They're both paranormal investigators. Cy is also a photographer, and Lane also has a tackle and bait shop local here in town. And welcome to the podcast, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we get into, before we fully get into like the paranormal investigation stuff, how did you guys meet each other?
Well, I had a team here a few years back and kind of got out of it for a little while. And then about a year ago, I was like, I need to get back into this. This has just been my passion for about 18 years. And put a post on Facebook, and he was one of the main ones that responded. And just met up, and I think he clicked. Thought he was going to be a great fit for the team.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And I saw the post. I was excited about it. And after talking with him just for the first day, I could tell he was just into it as much as I was, if not even more. So I figured I could learn something and joined up, and everything we've done so far has been a blast.
So what made both of you guys want to get into paranormal investigations?
Well, like I said, I've been at this about 18 years. I've always known, ever since I was little, especially one of the houses I lived in was outside Springfield. But it just, I don't know, it's just a weird feeling you get, growing up. You just, when you sense things, is it real? Is it fake? And just certain gut feelings. And it's just been, friend of mine, we just kind of talked and said we were, both in paranormal, and we're just like, let's do this. And then the hard part was, it was like 2 years later, he passed away of a massive heart attack, and that just that pretty much killed me,
right?
But I want to keep it going, and just been at it ever since.
What about you?
For me, it was kind of like he said, it started off in childhood. I lived in a really creepy spot here, actually in Sydney, which I'm not going to say where, but everything pretty much branched from then. From seeing things to hearing things to not being able to explain why, like, your hairs are standing up, why you feel like somebody's always watching you, or you're always being chased. And it seems like in certain places, things single you out. They wait till you're alone. They wait till they find out what you're afraid of and what exactly scares you, and uses that against you. So as a kid, I was really scared and had some things happen to me that always made me want to challenge the things that scared me. So I started digging in and learning what I could, and created a better faith in God and with Jesus, and expecting him to help me through these things that I might find, and I know I'm not exactly doing what I'm supposed to, reading his word, but at the same time, I have questions, and this seems to be the only way I can really get an answer is by diving in myself. So,
right, I understand that.
I think Sydney is a pretty spooky little town. Downtown looks like it would be in a ghost movie,
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a very old town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I started the team back up, I have been a few places here in town. The old Murphy building. It is actually, I will say, pretty active. Did an investigation there one night, and met with the owners at that time. And that, thank you, Mr. Lane. But we were investigating on the third floor, and one of the claims that this worker guy that they had he was up on a ladder, and something tugged at his pants, and he was the only one in there, and freaked him out. He got off the ladder and told him, says, "I'm not coming back." So the night when we were investigating, they were all on the third floor, and I said, if you are the gentleman that tugged on this guy's pants, I said, are you here? And every one of us said, yes. Went and grabbed my recorder. It was on there.
Jesus.
So that was pretty trippy. And then one of my other investigations, we actually my first one, actually when we first started out, was at the Great Stone. And that, excuse me, it is very haunted. The original owners are still there. Their dog is still there. And there's a little boy in the basement. We got one of the claims where you could hear or smell, not hear, but smell cigar or pipe smoke. So the one lady, she said she stood outside the men's restroom waiting on some guy to come out after he was probably finishing smoking. And she said she waited there for almost a half hour. No one ever came out.
Jeez.
So, and that was one of the claims. I mean, we were in one of the front rooms, and during the night, we smelled like what they call that sweet stench, cigar pipe smoke. And that was so cool to actually experience that, to be, told, this could possibly happen, or, this did happen, and to find out, that claim was absolutely true. And then just to hear certain bangs and bumps during the night. But my co-lead, the one I said that passed away, his name was Paul. And I actually met him a few years before that in a motorcycle group, and we became the best of friends. But he gave me a call the very next day. He says, please get over here. I'm like, okay. He says, what's going on? He says, just come over. So I get over to the house, and he's showing me a photo. He says, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, all right. We're down in the basement off of where they have the spa. And in the room is where the furnace, water heater, and all that is for the Great Stone. Well, there's a door, and inside that door is a little closet. He showed me the picture, and inside the closet, you see a full apparition of a little boy sitting in that closet. You see his top torso. You see the shelf going through him, and you see his legs. You see the whole apparition of a little boy in this closet. And still to that day, it is one of my most amazing, captures of the paranormal. And it's just people say, how can that happen? Well, we choose, I believe we all choose when we pass away, if we're going to stay here or if we're going to move on to where we need to move on to. So, and I believe that we stay around is because of our loved ones. We want to continue to watch over them, be there for them. And that's why we always wondered, is somebody watching us? That feeling on the back of your neck, just something's not right. But that's usually something is there with you. They're just trying to get your attention. And that's, and people don't like that. They don't, if they don't understand it.
People fear the unknown naturally.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a fun story from when I was a baby. My grandma tells me that all the time, that we were at the store and I started giggling, and she looked at me and she was like, why are you laughing? And I was like, I think I said Graham got her wings or something like that. And she was completely confused, what I was talking about. And then we got back to her house and she had a voicemail saying that her mom had passed away. So
you got that premonition.
Yeah.
You got that gut feeling. That's what it is. I mean, we all get it, but we just don't understand.
Yeah.
And people.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I feel like kids are a lot more susceptible to that also. I feel like kids have a lot stronger connection with the other side or things that might be close to becoming on the other side. So it makes sense.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
You were a kid when that
Yeah, with that, being in this for so long, that with what Mr. Lane just said, that I believe that we're all born with this. We can see, we can hear, we can feel until we get to a certain age. And the reason I say a certain age is because that's when we start. Okay, we got to start growing up as a kid. We start playing more. We start worrying about this, worrying about that. And then as we get older, we start thinking, okay, friends, relationships. And we get older, we get into, okay, I got to grow up. What am I going to do? So we lose that feeling. But we're all born with it, but it's just how you choose to believe. Because the more you believe, the more you're going to perceive. And it's like a place that we've been to down in Middletown. And I'll also say that I am a tour guide at, it's called Post Town Elementary School. And one of the big things on the sign says when you leave here, you believe. And it's absolutely true. So the more you perceive, the more you'll believe.
Yeah, I think there's probably something to do with as you get older, you start to try to rationalize everything too.
Yes.
So you become more of a skeptic.
Yeah. Well, and you're not allowed to fear. I mean, as an adult male, you're not allowed to be scared of the dark. You can't be scared of something chasing you. And if there is, you're supposed to face it, And I think over time, as you rationalize, like you said, that fear and that headspace you get into, you learn to block that out. And I think when you block that out, you block a lot of other things that might be real. But we are conditioning ourselves to block that out from the time we're 10, 11, 12, 13, from the time we're supposed to be able to protect people instead of just protecting ourselves. I think that's when we start to push away those vibes and feelings that would push us into a deeper realization of what paranormal is. I truly feel, like I said, when you're a kid, you're closer. You're more connected to that side than you can be as an adult. And I think as investigators, we're trying to reach back to that point and get as close as we can, but it's difficult. And when you finally find something, irreparable proof in this field is almost unheard of. You get very few times when the full boy apparition, or I've had a couple experiences myself. There's very few times that you actually get to experience something, and it's frustrating that when you do, you still can't explain it, and to get people to believe you on top of it, even if with proof, is still another challenge in itself. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one thing I've always go back to when I started, learning about this, the old saying is, how you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's the same thing with paranormal. I mean, you just can't go somewhere and expect that entity or the ghost or, what it is. You can't just say, okay, you need to talk to me. You need to show yourself. It doesn't happen that way. They're just as fearful because some of them don't realize they've passed. Because maybe the situation how they passed,
right?
But I always believe, and I'm glad Mr. Lane is a very spiritual guy. He believes in the church and all that, and I do believe in God. I absolutely do. But I believe when we pass, like I said before, that we choose to stay or go. We go to a positive place. Or we'll go to a negative place. I don't believe, I don't think there's a heaven and I don't think there's a hell. Because I think we're all taught, in all these different religions, they all put a book in front of us, just like in school, you have to learn this. That's not what it's about. You got to live your life and how you want to perceive the spiritualism in you. To me, my church is outside. It's the air, it's the earth, it's water, it's everything. That's what God touches, and that's what God gave us. The grass, the water, the trees, everything. That's true religion to me.
I agree with that, and we go outside a lot, and we do our best to try to go camping at least once a year. And to go on hikes and everything just so we can be with nature, because of exactly what you were saying, that's where it all starts. And but I do want to know, from both of you guys, when you go to do a paranormal investigation, what are the steps leading into it, and what kind of devices are you guys using?
one of the biggest things for me, I absolutely want to know the history. That's so more important because you don't know what it could happened at that location. But you got to stop and think. Everything happens for a reason, and when we die, we leave our energy behind. So if you go clear back to the caveman days, you got to think those were the first walkers of this earth. So they've left their footprints, and passed on. So that's just we're living, that legacy. And some of these places like, well, how can this place be haunted? Say it's a brand new home. It's not the home, it's the property. You got to think, Native Americans, Civil War, that stuff. You got to think how many people have passed maybe at that location. And it's like the place that I'm a tour guide is, and I will have to throw this out there. It's called Post Town Elementary School. It's in Middletown. But the one main part of the school, the gymnasium where it sits, there was actually, I'm not sure what year it was, but there was a train accident. And they brought all the dead and injured to where the gymnasium stands. So
I think I've heard this story.
So they had to be, treated there. And at that time, that whole area, they only had 2 motorized vehicles. So if you have many, say hundreds of people was on a train, how are you going to transport with 2 motorized vehicles?
Right.
Rest was horse and carriage. You had to go from Middletown, you either had to go to Cincinnati, or you had to be transported to Dayton. So you got to think all that energy was left on that spot. Plus, you had the flood of 1913. Many people were killed. It's just like I mentioned. It's just the footprints that have been left, and that energy is still there. And so many people don't realize that, and they don't want to realize it. Like I said, us growing up, you lose that sensation. But if you follow yourself, I want to believe. And I'm someone that you call an empath. So I feel everybody's energies. I feel positive, I feel negative. And it's something I've had to live with. I want to know more. But doing this, you also have to protect yourselves. You got to say, okay, how much can I open up? But sometimes it may take something to attack you to make you realize you have to,
Set a boundary.
Yeah, absolutely set boundaries.
I would say, so whenever we start off investigations, one thing I just have to do for my own peace of mind, let alone if there's relevancy to it or not, I'd like to pray before an investigation just to kind of guard myself, say certain things, and keep a routine. That way I know, at least spiritually for myself, I'm protected when I go into this, or at least as much as I can and what my beliefs are. I know there's things out there that I'm not fit to handle. And I know there's instances that if I walk into, I'm going to turn around and walk right back out. There's just certain situations I'm not willing to deal with. I loved this, but at the same time, I have a family and I have kids, and I don't need to bring anything into that household or anything home with me that's going to cause them harm in any way. That's very important to me at the beginning of investigations.
Absolutely.
Another thing that he said, knowing, like the research of the area, what you are dealing with. Like he said, if it's a new property and this is a haunting, well, there's several different things it could be. If this is an old property, and is this just residual energy that you're feeling? I think that's another thing that's important to know ahead of time. As far as equipment, we both have our own kind of equipment. I use a thermal camera. I also like the point, the directional, it'll tell you the temperature. It'll tell you the EMF field. We both use EMF readers. You have a ghost box, right?
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, and one thing with EMF is called electromagnetic field, and these devices pick up on that because spirits need energy, and that's how they need to manifest themselves to show themselves. So when we feel, a lot of times when we feel drained, I mean, that's could be something near us. It's pulling our energy. They're just trying to say, hey, I'm here. But there's what you see a lot of these TV shows. I mean, I love to have a lot of the big equipment that they have, but major is just your EMF detectors. To when we go around the place, we'll try to pick up where the main power is. Especially you have to turn your phones on airplane mode because a lot of your phones put out a certain amount of power, and you don't want your devices to pick that up. So we'll put our phones on airplane mode. But we also want to know where are the junction boxes, where is the main power, so we know our detectors, if that picks it up, that's that. So when a lot of people don't understand too that they feel strange in certain areas of their house too, because it could be the power coming into the home. They could be sensitive to that power, and sometimes people say, well, why do I get scared in my basement? It's because it could be the power, because it emits so much, and some people are so sensitive to power, it can make you nauseous.
It can alter the state of thinking.
It can give you skin rashes. It makes you fearful, and it's just amazing to learn that actually power can actually do that to our bodies. And then people they just kind of, it's a little bit of a sigh of relief. It could be that. So that's why we use these pieces of equipment, so we know what's going on. But for me, I think my two favorite pieces is a digital recorder and a mini mag light. And the reason I say that is I like to be just personal. I don't want all these gadgets to say, okay, there's something here or there's not. I can have a conversation. I grab my mag light. I just twist the end of it where it comes on. Then I twist it back just a hair right where it goes off. I set it down, and I can ask the spirit to answer questions.
And I'm a witness to this happening on several occasions.
I wish I could find some of my old videos, and I'll explain why. But they can actually use their energy to turn the flashlight on. So I'll say, turn it on for yes answers, leave it off for no. And you can start asking, are you male? If it lights up, it's male. If it lights up, say, are you female? Lights up. So at least you start that off, and we'll ask the questions, who are you? What is your name? Why are you here? What's going on? If you don't, then we'll try to check our recorders and see if anything came through. Then if not, I'll go back to my flashlight, and I'll start with the alphabet. Okay, let's try to prove your name. Why don't you tell me who you are? If you want to spell it out, we'll spell it out. Turn the flashlight on when I get to that letter. And I've gone, and Lane has done the same thing.
And it's awesome. It is awesome
to see it light up, for, say, each letter. Then we'll write it down, then try to get a name. Then that's one thing when you go to a location that people are telling you, well, this is what's happened. This is who it was. But then we'll also have, people come in, they are mediums. We don't want them hearing that first, stuff, because we want them to go in and let them feel how they feel, want them to use what they know. And when it comes to the mediumship, I wish I knew more and understood more about it, but that is another fascinating area of the paranormal. But to learn the history of the location is key, because you got to know what actually happened, and it just, we go from there. But one location, I was in Mansfield, this one location, it was called the Bisman Building, which actually was the hotel for Shawshank Redemption. It was, at that time when I was there, the guy was still running. It was a 7th generation. But there was a little girl that was killed in the basement. There was a guy that lost his head in the elevator. But I was up on the 2nd floor, and I actually had a half-hour conversation with my mini mag light and my recorder with this little girl. And I was so drained, and she literally drained my flashlight after that. But to actually sit and talk and have a conversation with a flashlight, and she answered every question, and it didn't go off any other. When a question was answered or asked, she answered. And to see that, it's phenomenal, how something like that can, do that. And I want to keep knowing more and more, it's just, that's where we lose, I think, a lot in our schools is the history. We got to keep these kids educated and let them know this is what's happened here. This is what our ancestors fought for. You got to understand everything.
Right. So you mentioned the Mansfield. What's more haunted, the prison or the hotel?
Mr. Lynn, have you?
I have not experienced either of them. No, I have not.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you was at the old prison or not.
No, I have not been.
The old Mansfield Reformatory. Oh my gosh, I've been there many times. Right now, I will have to say, and if anybody out there picks this up that knows people that run it, I won't return because you could do a private overnight from 7 to 7, okay, and you paid so much for that whole night. Well, they're still charging the same, but a little bit more, and you're only there till 3:00 in the morning. So you just can't do that. Okay, these places are just overcharging people for something that it's to learn about. But Mansfield, to me, when you step on the property, you feel every emotion. I mean, you feel the sadness, you feel the anger, you feel the hatred. I mean, it's just unreal. And the first time I was there, I got one EVP. I was like, oh, really? This is what I'm expected from this place? I was shocked. But then the next several times I was there, it got unreal. And one night, me and some others were there. There were 4 of us were down in solitary. And it was off of the solitary room where they shot in Shawshank. Those were closed doors. You just had an open little window the guards could open. Otherwise, there was no windows. I mean, it was a solid cell. Then you go through a doorway. It's still solitary, but they have like mesh over the cells. The 4 of us, we were 1 to each cell, the first 4, and we're all investigating, asking questions. And next thing we hear were these bangs. It was just awful. And my buddy's screaming. I was like, what's going on? And he says, I was thrown out of here. I'm like, what? So we grabbed the camera that was facing down the hallway, and you see him being, oh, I'm sorry, that's my phone going off.
You're fine.
I thought it was like an ambulance or something.
But you see on the video, he's about a foot and a half, almost 2 foot off the floor, coming out of the cell.
Jeez.
And he said he was literally picked up and thrown out. And it's just, I've heard many claims. I mean, women being touched very inappropriately, guys get attacked. It just, solitary there is just awful. And then another experience, I can't remember what wing it was, but it was on the left side to where I'm facing, where they actually brought you into the intake. Thank you. And I think it's the 3rd tier is the guy who was set on fire. And we're up there, and I'm shooting down the length, and something is in my camera. I took several shots. There's just a corner's black. Next shot, a little bit more is black. Next shot, over half of it was black. And it's just something was coming at me. It actually blocked out my camera.
Jeez.
And at the end of the shot, it was back clear again. It was I took like 7 shots, and from the beginning to end, in the middle, it was totally black. Something came down that way, and my camera caught it. But and the stuff on my voice recorder, the the being yelled at, being screamed at, and hearing hollers and people just yelling, wanting help. I mean, it's just a lot of bad things happened, and that energy is still there, and it will never leave.
Yeah, so it was overcrowded and burnt down like twice, right?
The one actually burned. That was in Columbus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was. I can't remember the name of that, but it was another prison that was in Columbus. Yes, did catch fire, and they moved all those prisoners to Mansfield. So yes, it was very overcrowded, and it's still at that time when I was first, going there first couple of years, they were still finding evidence, of how many people were actually there. And these other rooms, you would see writings on the wall. I mean, these convicts drew pictures, but they also left their numbers. They didn't have a name. You were a number. So they would put their number was here, and this is me. This is date. From here to there, and then some you saw it was right next to it, back again. But these areas they should have never been in, but they put them there because it was just so overcrowded. So many people were murdered. They committed suicide. It's just, they were a lot of just angry people. And it's just that stone just absorbed it all.
And passed it on to the new,
Yeah.
I feel like.
And then you got the new prison that sits behind, so you still got so much negativity still in that whole area. It's just unreal. And yes, there are so many spots in Ohio that are so haunted. You get the old tuberculosis hospital in Lima. People try to go check it out, but it's illegal to go there, And there's the Gore Orphanage. It's up north, but it burnt down, but you still have the foundation. But you got to think all the kids that were, killed in that fire.
Yeah.
It's just Ohio has a lot of places that are just, I'm going to say, out of bounds. It's just because it's that crazy.
Lane,
Yeah.
with you being so new into it compared to Cy, what's the craziest place that you've been to?
Craziest place I've been to has to be the Fort Pickens area down in Florida. We went through that war fort down, me and my family, and just felt off the entire time. So we ended up having my grandparents watch the kids, and we went back again, and I took my EVP recorder with me, and they have certain cells and war cells down there that would hold prisoners of war during the time, or a lot of them were like pirates that had either wrecked or had been seized and their boats taken. They were held there at that war fort, and they have the rooms. Everything's still the same way as it was then. The cannons are still in the wall. It's like it's still a living piece of history. And we got the okay for me and my wife to just walk through it. And a few rooms my wife wouldn't even go into just because of the feeling. But I ended up leaving there with a couple scratch marks on my love handles and then on my leg. And I couldn't explain it. I don't remember it happening. I don't remember feeling like there was any kind of burning or anything. And I didn't get one thing on my EVPs. But for weeks after we left Florida, every night I'd have the same dream about the same room and the same markings above the door. And it was just a complete, I want to say it made me shift mentally to the point where I had to tell myself, I had to step away, ground myself, and actually, hey, come back to reality, because every single night was consumed with the same thoughts. Like even after we were back here in Ohio, I kept telling my wife, hey, we need to go back down there. I want to go to this fort. We need to check it out. And it was almost as if something was like pulling me back to this spot, but yet nothing really happened that I could explain. And I didn't know why I wanted to be there so bad, but I did. And that's just the way I reacted to that whole situation is probably the spookiest thing that I've ever investigated, just because now I can look back and I see that entire time from the time I went in the first time our whole vacation of 7 days was me consumed with being in there and investigating to find still absolutely nothing other than, just what I felt while I was there, or the need to go back. So that, looking back at it now, that would definitely be the most scariest experience I've had. Just to know, I don't know if I was close to possession. I don't know what it was, but I was. It was like I needed to be there for some reason. I still to this day can't explain why.
What about you, Sai?
I'm going to say the actual worst place. I'll have to go back to the Bismarck building the first night. The owners, were giving us the walkthrough, showing us the whole place from top to bottom. And the last part of the night, he says, we're not letting anybody investigate. We'll show you, but it's the garage area. And I don't remember if it was on Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures, but that area was shown, on the episode. But it's just a big garage. They also could work on cars and stuff like that. But they had a business also in there. They did like printing, T-shirt printings and stuff like that. So we're going into the garage, but we're walking through their business in the back, and there's just a big sliding door, like your door's right here. And I was the last one. You had to walk down the ramp into the garage. So I'm turning around. I closed the door, pulled it shut, walking down the ramp. I get to the very bottom. Something takes my both hands. I felt it, both sides of my head, and it put me to the floor. I mean, I was never so scared in my life. And I understood that there are stuff out there that can attack us. And that's why we got to know how to protect ourselves if we believe. Because that's where you got to go back to say, if you don't believe, you're not going to sense it, you're not going to experience it. But if you believe, you're going to. And to experience that, it was just awful. And, why? Why did that happen? Why did they think they needed to choose me out of the group? Maybe I was more susceptible, maybe just who I was.
Bigger threat.
Yeah. So as of then, I knew, okay, I have to protect myself. I got to know what I'm getting into at each location. So that's why when Lane and I, we got to know the history. You got to know what's going on and who could have been at that location. I mean, were they angry when they died? Did they go to prison because they did something, because they maybe murdered somebody at that location, and then murder them, could be like a murder-suicide or something like that. That energy's still there. So something at that location, the Bismarck building is just something at that time was so awful. That's the reason they weren't letting anybody investigate. But to be actually attacked and put to the floor, that put a whole spin on this, and that's what I want to learn more. And it still is. After 18 years of doing this, I'm still learning. I mean, it's just nothing's the same.
I bet that was a crazy experience.
It absolutely was.
I couldn't imagine.
So with using like the audio recorders and stuff, do you feel like most ghosts want to talk? Or there's some that are less social?
It's like I guess I'll have to go back, like saying, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And it's the same. You if they want to show themselves, that's what I'm hoping for. I want to learn. That's that learning thing. It's just if you're here, why are you here? Are you stuck? Do you need my help? If you do, I will help you. I have the resources, the people to help push them on to that positive or negative side, where if not, but we want to learn what's going on. And that's just the biggest part of the paranormal is trying to understand and learning from that.
If someone gave you guys free plane ticket to one place that you guys would want to investigate in a whole week there, what place are you guys picking?
personally, it would be Scottsbourne, Ireland. There's a cemetery there that's a little bit over 2 miles long, and it's actually like sectioned off into areas as far as just the catastrophic events that have happened around that time. That's where this section of the cemetery is. I think it would be very, as far as I know, which the videos I've seen of it are probably 20 years old, but there's still no electric out there. There's no lights. Everything's very simple. Every grave marker is the same. It's still a very respected place as far as the gates are still the same as they were when they opened. There's still a guard that stands out there at all times and a kilt. I mean, there's a lot of sanctitious emotions that get poured into that place daily. And I think if there was a place to get irrefutable proof of the paranormal, that would be the spot for me. But I'm also a big fan of Ireland, so yeah.
I get that. I'm Irish, so I get that.
I'll have to agree with Mr. Lane. Ireland, Scandinavia, especially Scandinavia. Actually, because I was doing family history, and that's I found out that's where I hail from. But you see these shows and movies, that they were just so brutal back then. To walk those grounds, to see those castles, the energy just has to be off the chart over there. My paranormal bucket list is pretty long. It's like, he mentioned Fort Pickens. That would be totally cool. But for me, if not going overseas to Europe, definitely Tombstone, Arizona, and San Diego, Alcatraz. Those two places to me, and also I'll say Gettysburg. It's just so much happened at those locations, and it's just the energy. I haven't investigated at Gettysburg. I've got to see it with my daughter when she went to D.C. For her 8th grade trip.
Yeah.
We stopped at Gettysburg on the way to D.C. We didn't get to see much, but you could just feel that energy, and now being there, I want to learn. Oh my gosh, I want to learn so much more.
It's a place you feel the energy before you even get there. Within a couple miles of getting to there, everything changes. The atmosphere, I also went with my son. And just that whole area, it just seems extremely heavy. Like something wants to talk, something wants to say something, but nobody really says anything about it. It's like it's just normal for down there. But if you're not from around that place and you're just stepping into it, I don't care whether you believe in the paranormal or not, you feel something change. The field changes.
Absolutely.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's fine.
We did the 6th grade trip, and it was a cool experience as a kid, but I feel like going as a 6th grader doesn't do it any justice because you're not really interested in it because it's just stuff they're shoving down your throats from a book. Yeah. And B, it takes life experience and everything to appreciate what happened there more. So I love that they do that, but I wish that they would wait until you got older to, you know what I mean, like a high school trip or something.
Yeah.
But is there a story from a place that has affected you guys on a personal level?
Absolutely. For me, where I grew up, like I said, a place here in Sydney, definitely just countless nights of seeing things like shadows, things that. But at the same time, I was a kid, so I can look back now and say, hey, maybe I was just really scared out of my mind, literally. But we found things like finger bones in the basement and jars with people's hair in it and jars with pictures from
that's creepy.
1800s. Stuff etched in what looked like chalk paper, things like
Dude.
that. We would find and supposedly the house that we were in, so in the basement, there was an embalming bed in the basement where it was still had the you could see the hole in the side, you could see the stains in the stone. Like my parents ended up painting it red because they did a Halloween thing where they would let people come down and there was like a spooky trail, but supposedly there was like 2 basements buried underneath that basement, and this place was brought over here, which I'm sure people that do their social studies will be able to find out where it is, but it was brought over here in 1642, and there used to be a cellar underneath the basement, and then there was actually another basement area where they would keep it was basically the jailhouse back then, way before this was ever called Sydney. And just digging down in that stone and that dirt and finding the things that we did, which was just creepy as a kid. And then that kind of stuff resonated with me. And it could have been us finding that stuff that always fueled my fear and my nights of seeing stuff, things floating, things in the corner, stuff like that. That always stuck with me. And I think that traumatized me a lot as a kid, as thinking something was out there to get me. And in all reality, I think something was just letting us know that it was there, we were kids, and maybe it was a kid. Maybe it just wanted somebody to play with.
Right.
It was a lot of, back when the plague and stuff like that, a lot of kids perished. And when you're a kid, you don't think about that kind of stuff. You don't really think about, hey, what's a kid's normal reaction? To go play with the local kids, you know? So at that time, I think it really tore me up. But now, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd be where I'm at.
Yeah, I will have to say I agree with that. I have to go back to my childhood. There was a house that we lived in. It was actually a bank barn that was, turned into a home. The basement, you could still see the stone wall, the half doors, that you can no longer open. But, that's where they kept the horses or cattle downstairs. Upstairs, there was a see-through fireplace, but you still had the ladders, still going both sides of the chimney going up to the haymow. You still had the logs, of the barn. But there was something where my bedroom was. There was a bathroom in the corner of the hallway. There was a long closet in that hallway before you got into my bedroom. And I had to face the outer wall because I would see something black mass come out of this closet every night. I was always so scared to death. And I always wanted to know why. And then one night in the same house, I got up. It was like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I figured, okay, I heard the TV on. I thought my dad was, up late watching TV. Well, I get up, go down the hallway, turn into the family room, and there was a little boy and dog sitting on my couch watching TV. I screamed. TV went off. Never saw it again. So between that black mass coming out of the closet and that, what's going on? Why am I seeing this? And that's, I was a very young child. I mean, I was in elementary school. And that's why I got to go back and say this, we all believe until we get to that certain age. Then I kind of lost track of that after that. That's when I started growing up. And I can't remember what happened, but a lot of times I feel something in our lives will take us back to that to make us, okay, you do believe.
Makes you
And
remember.
it something in your life happens and it brings that, and it makes you wonder, okay, why am I feeling this now? Then that's why you start asking questions. And that's where I got 19 years ago. I wanted to know more. I got to know what's going on. Why is this happening here? Why is this happening there? It's just a learning curve. If this is something you want to believe in, but it's usually something traumatic in your life that makes you believe. And sometimes you may go on the rest of your life and never believe, and you go on. But you have people that they question themselves, and I love a skeptic. I can absolutely prove things. I can show you things that's going to curl your toes, and you will leave believing. That's just We just got to get back to that. We got to understand about life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan, I feel like I've been asking most of the questions.
You're fine. I was just going to interject for a moment to say that when I was growing up, my great grandparents owned a big house in Pickwa. They were pretty well off, but it used to be part of the Underground Railroad. And I didn't experience anything because I wasn't allowed to be in the house at night. Like it was, hey, the grandkids need to go home after a certain time kind of thing.
Right.
But they had a false wall in the basement that they used to use to hide people, and there were carve-outs beside the in the fireplace for people to hide beside the fireplace when people came into the house. And it was so interesting. As a kid, I wanted to go into all of these places, but they kept saying it was dangerous. I think there might have been more to it than that, but they said the house was old and they didn't want anybody to get hurt or anything. But it was just such an interesting place to be in. It did feel off. It was a very big, drafty house where a lot of history had happened in the house.
Right.
But I loved going there all the time just to look around.
You were curious. I mean,
Yeah.
we are, as kids, I mean, we're so curious. We want to know about things. And that's when we get
find
older.
out.
Yeah.
You know,
Find out. That's the
it's like,
problem.
you know, we get in that mode, okay, it's time to get a girlfriend,
Yeah.
you know, it's time to get a job. So we lose that until something back in our life. It could cause, say, a death in the family can bring it.
Yeah.
You know, someone you experiencing somebody had, you know, died in a bad way. It just something can make
right
you
there.
experience
Yeah.
and all of that comes flooding back.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, okay, why? Why is this happening?
Yeah, sadly, after my great grandfather died, they sold the house off, and the new owners closed everything up. So that was kind of sad. So all of the old hiding places and stuff that had been built into the house to facilitate the Underground Railroad all got sealed. So that was really sad. Just for the history of it, it was sad.
Oh,
'Cause it's like-
absolutely. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just so to hear and to learn about slavery and
Yeah.
how they were treated. It's unbelievable how we could treat a human being the way we treated them. You know, and I'm so sorry, you know, that happened. You know, I don't understand how anybody could treat a living person that way.
Yeah, I don't get
And
it.
that's still that energy. I mean, that was
Yeah.
bad things. Bad things leave their mark, you know?
And I'm sure that's part of why they sealed everything up. And I mean, I think they wanted to modernize the house a little bit because it was
Correct.
old. But it's tough to seal up a part of history of this was a good person that helped these people escape. And now that's, those like artifacts of it are gone. But
Can we talk about how crappy it is that people buy stuff and get rid of the history of the place?
it
You know, you see so much today that these cities tearing down historical sites. You know, that's my history. That's my kids' history. That's my it's my grandchildren, it's my great grandchildren, and so on. If it's not there, how can we learn from it?
exactly.
You know, and if you actually look into a lot of that stuff, they're pouring more money into tearing it down than the rehab. To rehab is going to be so much cheaper.
Right.
You know, you're preserving that history.
Yeah.
And these owners got to put these places on historical society. You know, they got to do that to protect. If you don't register that location, then it's going to be the chance of being torn down. And there's our history gone.
Yeah. I wish somebody had bought the house that wanted to like turn it into a historical site, maybe something for people to walk through and everything. Because the yard was full of arrowheads and there were some cool things in this on this property. So it would have been nice if somebody had bought it for that intention instead of just flipping the house, which is what it turned into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. It's just our history is I will say slowly, but I think it's not really slowly anymore. Like I said, these buildings, in statues. I mean, that's our history being taken away by people who are ignorant, and we got to learn. This is where I guess I got to go back to our ancestors. I mean, it's now been proven Christopher Columbus was not the first person here.
Yeah.
It were the Vikings. It was that time. It was way before. But we got to understand what our ancestors fought for. For our freedoms, and all that. And today we are so lost, and we got to get back to our history. Learn about this and then understand. This is what happens.
We went on the Sydney Ghost Tour this year. That the historical people do. And they started out at the castle.
Greystone?
Bonnie
The Bonnie Conlon.
Bonnie.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Dude, Bonnie Conlon. When I first started this 18, 19 years ago, that just to look at that place, I mean, it's a castle. It's got gargoyles. I mean, where are you going to see that around here? I mean, especially the gargoyles. I mean, that just gives it such more the creepiness. And then, we went there one time and we just walked around because there was nobody living there. It was still, sitting, just rotten, rotting away. But the carriage house, it was so much more worse of a feeling than what the house did. To actually feel that, and I was like, why am I feeling this way? Instead of, closer to the house, why this is the carriage house. So that means something bad happened at that location.
Right.
And it's just creepy enough. I mean, just to see that thing up on a hill, and at that time, I said, my co-lead and I, we thought, man, it'd be so cool to buy this, turn it back to what it was, and to have people tour this.
Well, that's kind of like somewhat the cool thing is the new owners, they let everybody in. And all the woodwork that was original to the castle had been taken out at some point.
Yes.
And they repurchased all the woodwork and are putting it back into where it originally was.
Yeah.
And
Mr. and Mrs. Moffat.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was really cool because after they did the whole ghost thing where they were pretending to be the original people that lived there, they let us ask questions about the house and everything. And they just gave us so much information about, like, the woodwork and a lot of the things that, like, most people don't get to hear about it.
Yeah, the woodwork came from Europe. I mean, some of the woodwork was... There's trees that aren't even standing in Europe today. I mean, It
was brought over from France.
It's this pristine wood,
which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
3 of the 9 ships when it was being brought over sunk, and that is the entire reason that the back portion of the castle is all laid in brick. Only the front, the first 5 ships carrying the front of the castle actually made the journey. 2 of them were recovered while in the water as much as they could. But that's the whole reason for the back part of the castle being done in laid brick instead of like the front, actually in masonry stone. It's actually just a place I'm very familiar with.
That's
crazy.
That's interesting.
That is very interesting.
Yes,
yeah.
I did not know that.
Cool. They didn't even tell us that while we were there.
It was brought
wish.
over for a Duke of France, like a.
I wish. Yeah, that is a defo location. Awesome. I wish we could have just permission to go to.
I have tried. Yeah. I've reached out to Dave and Heather Moffat, both also.
I mean,
I've spoke with them a few times, but
I mean, we do. I mean, what we do is nothing bad. I mean, it's just learning about the location and what's here, what's not here, and that's like it. That goes back to people understanding. This is not a bad thing. It's not going to cause. When we come in with total respect.
Absolutely.
We don't We don't provoke, and I'm going through. I hopefully it doesn't come back and bite me. But Zach Bagans,
All he does is try to make them mad.
I tell
He's
people,
gotten smarter now.
yeah, but I tell people I'm not Zach. That's not investigating. You don't provoke. And it's like, down at the Post-Town Elementary School that we have these pictures put up, but no seances, no open flames, no Ouija boards. That brings bad stuff in. Mm-hmm. That's not what investigating is about.
Right.
You're there to learn that history and what is there and why. I mean, that's what the paranormal is. And for someone like Zach Bagans, and there's others out there that just think this is a joke, it's not. I mean, yeah, I know he knows this is real. He's been attacked. He's taken stuff home with him. But at every location, it's like, we start positive and we end positive. And we say, please stay here. We don't want you coming with us. This is where you belong. Don't follow us home. You don't have that permission. I mean, you have to tell them this. And I've brought stuff home with me because I never said that. Then, I have to sage my house or do something to, protect my house then and protect my family. And that's, like he said at the beginning, is we got to think of our loved ones because we don't want to bring something bad home. It's going to, follow them, possibly attack them. So, I mean, it can be a bad situation too. That's why I say you got to learn, you got to understand.
I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this. Obviously, there's a bunch of different ghost hunting TV shows out there. Who would, in your guys' opinion, who would be the most accurate or less fake? Because I know
Taps is absolutely. They have a lot of the state of the art equipment that normal people can't afford. Their leaders, both of their head people are both Christians, which I'm not saying good or bad of, but they also know not to mess with things. And I think the way that they present themselves, their entire group is very respectful towards whatever area they're in. They don't do the taunting. They don't do the Ouija boards, things like that. And I have a lot of respect for people that
absolutely
can come at that from that sort of an angle, be famous and still be very humble as far as for what they're doing. I would say them. Also, there's a really good British paranormal investigation team, and they're on Hulu. Have you seen them, Si?
Not offhand.
I can't remember their name, but there was a group on there that they're also very straightforward, very humble about their experiences, and seem to be realistic about it. So I'd say those two shows, if you can find that other one on Hulu, it's definitely worth a watch.
I'm going to say between Ghost Hunters, Taps, when you watch these episodes, I mean, they're, and, even talking on the walkie-talkies on the way there, it's the history. They want to know about that location. And the same as the Tennessee Wraith Chasers. They're the same way. And I've actually got to meet two of them, Mr. Mike and Mr. Chris.
That's awesome.
They actually came to the Post Town. They're part of this group. I can't remember the guy who actually owns it. There's actually two people that own it, but it's called Ghost Hunt Weekends. And they have the Wraith Chasers, Mr. Steve, Mr. Chris, and then also Steve Gonzalez from Ghost Hunters. But they will bring them into, say, Post Town, and they'll put out there on their page and say, "Why don't you come join these guys for, and I guess say intimate, investigation, but you get to meet them and you get to investigate with them. That is just so cool, but to see Mr. Chris, and I said Steve, but Mr. Chris and Mr. Mike from Tennessee Wraith Chasers, what you see on TV is how they are in person. I mean, they're straightforward, they're down to earth, they're knowledgeable. They're just not out there just to make a buck. That's not what it's about. And they're I think Zach, I mean, he's in for the money. That's not what it's about. It's, you know, if you put money into it, why are you doing it?
Right.
You know, yes, this equipment.
I will say I would love to be able to throw those millions at like equipment like he does, but
Oh,
or entire
absolutely.
museums, but-
If I tell you, if I win the lottery, I will have some, you know, cool stuff. But it's just equipment, you know. It's you that you got to learn, you know, you got to feel it, you know. But yes, that equipment's going to help you. But yes, if there's quite a bit of equipment, if I had the money, yes, I would absolutely. But especially cameras, just, you know, regular camera, and they're trying to think full spectrum, and a full
SLS.
or SLS, but a full spectrum. And what that is, it's just a regular camera, but it sees into a light spectrum that our eyes can't see. The picture may look like a pinkish purple, and that's what that color we can't see, but that will pick up stuff that our eyes can't see. And another thing with the when we mentioned using our digital recorders also pick up in a realm that our ears can't hear. It's actually that dogs, cats, pets can hear.
HCR,
And
radio
that's why
frequency.
we always wonder, you know, when we see our pets act a certain way, you know, looking at something, because just as a child, they see everything. You know, it's just so weird. It makes me wonder why, you know, and I'd love to know more about that. But for me to ask questions and for my digital recorder to pick that up when I can't hear it, why? You know, that's just another question. Why? But to ask questions and have it answered on that, it's phenomenal. I'm phenomenal.
I believe it's one of the ghost hunters, like one of the founders' daughter does stuff at the Conjuring House with her friend. I can't remember her. I'm blanking on this information now. But
Oh,
I think you know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Yes, he's the comedian. He's from Columbus.
Yeah, I think Matt Rife bought
Yeah,
the
yes,
Conjuring
Matt.
House, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, he
Matt
bought the
Rife
Conjuring
now
House.
owns the Conjuring House, and that man, he makes money with his show. That man's going to be a millionaire because of that home.
He already is.
You know, it's just that Conjuring House is so out of bounds for me. I mean, that's a place I don't want to visit.
Oh, really?
It's like I don't know if it was Ghost Hunters or I think it was Ghost Adventures. Was Zach and them. They went to the Island of Dolls.
Yep. I would love to do that.
No, I mean we.
I would love to do that.
He loves it because we have a doll room at Post Town, and I was not going to go in there the first night, and he's like, "Come on, Si, come on." He finally got me, but still, as a tour guide there, that room creeps me out. You know, and I don't know what commercial it is, but it's a travel commercial for, I think, like a bed and breakfast or, you know, Airbnb or something. But, you know, the girls open the shade and there's a doll on the bed, and it turns and it says something and screams like, that's my fear. You know, that doll, I'm going to be in that room. It's going to look at me. It's going to say something. And I'm like, nope, I'm out. I'm done. I don't know, just dolls.
I totally
That's
get
the
that.
only thing in the paranormal world that I go to investigate. And there was actually, I don't remember the name of the place, but it was an old nursing home that was closed down just north of Zanesville, Ohio. And like I said, I don't remember the name of the town, but they had a doll room, and I did not go in there. It's just dolls. That's my fear. It's going to open its eyes, and it's going to